All right. Well, Velina Mekelo Hayakako Apau, thank you all for joining us today for our celebration of 50 years of ethnic studies. At the same time that we are looking to celebrate these many accomplishments, we're doing so in a time of much duress, where we continue to see the loss of lives to the dual pandemics of COVID and racism, including in recent deaths, not only on the continent, but here due to police shootings, in particular with, I remember SICAP, Lindani Mieni, whose deaths bring home the weight of the work of people dedicated to social justice. And so more than ever, we as a department are looking to really make government and all of our people accountable. So I want to just take that second to pause and honor all those who have passed this time. Mahalo. With that, I want to welcome you all. Thank you for joining us. It was a little bit of a mad dash and scramble in the middle of a pandemic to try to organize something that we would have much rather preferred to have had in person. But it is really great to see all of your Zoom faces through the screen. My name is Taika Vika Tengan. I'm the chair of the department. I'm also jointly appointed in anthropology, and it gives me a great pleasure to really welcome you all. I want to start off with a chant that is one that marks the completion of the building of a canoe and the launching of it. So on the one hand, we've completed this this beautiful this canoe of our department for 50 years, but also are looking forward to launching into the next 50. And this chant calls on those essences of Kani and Kanaloa, these ancestral deities and beings of elements of earth and water, that are our guides, connecting us with our ancestors and leading us forward. For us as a department that's taking on an oceanic ethnic studies commitment, this is something that's deeply important for us. So I want to offer this to open up the space.
Ellen, join the meeting.
O Karalu, Hioi, O Kara Inua, O Karalo, Inuava, my Kaigava, my Upolugava, my Babogava. E Hanuava, Huai, Hanuava, Paua, Kala, Baki, Kuila, Wela, Mama. Uanu, Ale, Valakula Puli. Mahalo. With that, it is also my honor to invite some comments and remarks from some of our longtime friends and supporters, particularly starting with those in the legislature. Representative Roy Takumi, who is here with us today from House District 35, representing Pro City, Manana, Waipahu, Waipio, and Crestview, has been serving since 1993. Born and raised here, he credits his parents for teaching him and his family values of hard work, fairness, and respect for others. And while here at UH Manoa, was one of our lab leaders in ethnic studies for Ethnic Studies 301 Ethnic Identity. So Representative Takumi, mahalo and welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Ty. Can you hear me? Great. Yeah, congratulations to Ethnic Studies on your 50th anniversary. I remember when I first took the Japanese in Hawaii class, that was 48 years ago. And it was a very great experience for me. In those days, the slogan of the department was "Our History, Our Way." And what it meant by that was not our history, only our way, but also that for history to be really inclusive and comprehensive, it cannot just be the history of capitalists and military generals and politicians, but it really has to be the stories of immigrants and working people and people of color to really give that full breadth and depth of people who made Hawaii what it is today. I remember in that class, there was a picture of James Dole. I think maybe it was probably for his uh, Dole Company's shareholder report. Anyway, it was a picture of James Dole, and in the background was pineapples, and it says James Dole and his pineapples. And I remember the lab leader in the class asking, how many of those pineapples do you think James Dole planted? And it really gave you a whole different way of looking at the world, because the reality was that James Dole didn't even plant one of those pineapples. So where are the stories of those who did? Where are the stories who built that company to where it was and what it continues to be? And where are their stories, which are just as, if not more important than the story of James Dole? It sort of reminds me of, whenever you see a cat playing with a mouse and we say, oh, look how cute that is. The cat's playing with the mouse. The mouse has a very different worldview of that situation. And I'd like to think ethnic studies, what it does is not only share the story of the cat, but also the story of the mouse, how that mouse looks at the world. And I think that's a very important story to tell. So congratulations again on your 50 years. Here's thoughts for another 50 years. And I think your theme of celebrating our past and reimagining our future is very appropriate for these trying times. And whatever help you guys can give down at the legislature, I get kind of tired of hearing from Noel and John. So if I can hear from some of the younger guys, I'd really appreciate that as well. So thanks again and congratulations.
Mahalo nui, Representative Takumi. Really appreciate those words. We also, we weren't able, he passed on his regrets, Senator Brian Taniguchi, he wasn't able to join, but another one of our former lab leaders, he who was a lab leader for Ethnic Studies 330 Japanese in Hawaii, senator who's been serving as an elected member of the legislature since 1980, as a representative from 1980 to 1994, and then in the Senate since that point, representing Hawaii's 11th senatorial district, including Manoa, Makiki, Punchbowl, and Papakolea. He just passes on these words. I will always do what I can to advocate for the department. It started me on my life path. You have my best wishes for a great event. So, mahalo nui to Senator Taniguchi for those words. We also yesterday were very honored to have been presented with a congratulatory certificate from the legislature that Representative Sonny Ganaden brought over to present. And I thought he wasn't going to be on, but I actually thought I saw him log on earlier. But in any case, we had the video in case he couldn't make it today. So I'm going to go ahead and let Ruben play the presentation of this certificate. I think the sound wasn't shared, Ruben. You might need to try to reshare and make sure that the sound is being shared or that it's not on mute.
Honor of representing District 30 at the Aloha, mabuhay, raranim. My name is Sonny Ganaden. I have the distinct honor of representing District 30 at the Hawaii State House of Representatives. That includes portions of Kalihi, Halava, Sand Island, and the airport. A lot of folks that are underserved in that community who live in public housing are discussed at the Department of Ethnic Studies here. So I'm here on behalf of the Hawaii State Legislature to give this certificate to Professor Tengan to celebrate 50 years of educating Hawaii students, our history, our way. The discussion of intersectionality at government, the ways that underserved communities are disproportionately affected by policing, by criminal justice, and by inappropriate laws continues to be something that we struggle with. And the work that Professor Tengan and students that do here is absolutely essential to holding democracy accountable. So thank you again, mahalo from all of us at the Hawaii State Legislature. Thank you again for 50 years and for many years to come. Thank you again.
Oh, look at that. Yay.
And so here is this wonderful certificate. If Sonny sounded like a professor, that's because he was one. He actually was teaching in our department, Ethnic Studies 410, Race, Class, and the Law. And since you are here, Representative Ganaden, do you want to share any words?
I don't want to take anything away from the faculty and the students and all the awesome work that you folks do to bring these discussions to the fore. I just wanted to drop that off yesterday and share my thanks and my appreciation on behalf of the legislature. Representative Takumi, numerous other people have come through the department and really appreciate all the work that you do. Congratulations to 50 years and we look forward to the 50 years after this. Going to be a lot of work to do. Hope you stay connected to this office so that we can push forward on some more equitable change here in the democracy. Thank you again.
Mahalo, mahalo, Representative Ganaden. Now it is also my pleasure and honor to invite our UH Manoa Provost, Michael Bruno, to share a few words. He has his PhD in Civil and Ocean Engineering from MIT Woodsell Oceanographic Institute, Joint Program in Oceanography, Applied Ocean Sciences and Engineering, and has taught and researched on ocean observation systems, climate change, and community resilience. These topics really pertinent to our work here, including training that Professor Daviana McGregor has given on Kaho'olawi in these areas. So we really welcome your presence. Mahalo, Michael.
Mahalo nui tai, and aloha everybody. It's certainly an honor and privilege to join you in celebration of 50 years of ethnic studies at Manoa, as you said in your announcement, celebrating our past and reimagining our future. You know, I've spent, I guess, more and more time right up to the shutdown with the faculty in the department. And as I've come to learn more about your work across the decades, I really come to believe that the Department of Ethnic Studies is one of the primary connectors of our campus. And by that, I mean a collection of scholars and areas of scholarship and learning that informs and strengthens the work of our campus across the entire university. And I have a deep respect for that. There's no question in my mind when we speak of being true and responsive to who we are and where we are. Ethnic studies has always been up at the top of the list. And I mean that. And, you know, I'm sure my colleagues and perhaps you, Ty, have all, I think, read the news today. If we needed any reminder of how important this work is, just open the news and you see that the state of Idaho has moved to ban the teaching of critical race theory in every public school in the state, including the universities in Idaho. This work is so important. It is so important that universities like ours keep it strong. So I want to end by congratulating the department and all the present and past faculty, staff, and of course, students on this impressive and meaningful milestone. I've learned so much from your outstanding senior faculty, and I apologize, we're all getting senior. And your remarkable young faculty. I've learned a lot. You mentioned it, my time on Kaho'olawi with Davey and others remains one of the most important learning experiences in my life. And for that, I'll be truly grateful. So, you know, we're going to navigate our way out of this health crisis and this fiscal crisis. And as we do that, and as we look to make those in power more accountable to address the social inequities and injustices that exist here and around the world, I look forward to working more closely than ever with you and your department and achieve even more highly in the years ahead. So congratulations.
Mahalo, mahalo, Provost Bruno. I would now like to introduce our College of Social Sciences Dean, Denise Conan, who is an award-winning teacher, noted international trade economist who's worked extensively in Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. Also a leadership fellow with the Science Education for New Civic Engagement and Responsibility, or a CENSOR, under which Hawaii was recognized as a censor model state in 2015, largely through work that was also led by our own Ula Hassiger. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to come, Dean Conan.
Thank you, Ty, and congratulations to Ethnic Studies for 50 years. That is such an exciting accomplishment. I've heard so much about Ethnic Studies over the years. I can remember many conversations with Amy Agbayani, who was very active in the founding of Ethnic Studies, and with Brian Taniguchi, he would emphasize with me time and again the importance of our history, our way, and the role that Ethnic Studies plays. Roy Takumi as well, and others. And it's been just really a privilege to work with the faculty. And I in addition to, the good words that are going to happen here today, I did think it would be helpful to just, I've been dean now for, it's about 11 years. And in that time, there's been some wonderful accomplishments of Ethnic Studies that really position it for the future. And I just want to let everyone on this call know that Ethnic Studies has played this very significant role to help incoming freshmen really adapt to a college experience through its summer bridge programs and some of its educational programs that are aimed at helping to use Ethnic Studies and understanding one's own history to transition into understanding how to succeed and thrive at the university. That's such important work. I'm looking at Noel Kent and Rod Labrada, others who lead these kinds of efforts, just really brilliant and important work. They did similar with Manoa Academy, which is a program for high schoolers to help give them a pathway to come to college, to give them some experience with college. That's one thing. Another is the service learning programs that Ethnic Studies has promoted for decades and decades. And, early, I remember when I first came to the University of Hawaii in 1993, Roy, it's interesting, we started at the same time in our professions. Noel Ken and others were leading this idea that service learning is really important. And Dick Dubanowski and the College of Social Sciences played a leadership role, but it was through Ethnic Studies and the community relations that, service learning really is one of those high impact practices that now Censor and AAC&U and others recognize helps students succeed and helps them connect what they're learning in the classroom to the real world. It's such important work, and they were pioneers in doing it, continue to be so. Their field schools in the community are so important, and all of their faculty are engaged in that kind of work. And it's such important work. And Na Ko'oko'o is another program that a number of our departments have participated in, but really emphasizing Hawaiian leadership, indigenous leadership knowledge as a way for students to really get pride in their identity and learn. And students who have finished that program, and Tai Tangan deserves so much credit for that, are going on to leadership positions. They're going on to graduate school at a rate we didn't see before. I'm so proud of these accomplishments. Then I think one other thing I did want to point out is a brilliant thing we did, and this took many, many discussions, was to move our Center for Oral History, which was in the Social Science Research Institute, into Ethnic Studies as a research center within Ethnic Studies. And Daviana McGregor has just done an amazing job of advancing scholarship through oral histories and telling those stories that, as Roy Takumi has said, it's not the generals, not the, politicians, but, that the community voices are true voices as really reflecting our history. And Daviana has just done a marvelous job with the Center for Oral History. I feel like we're so well positioned for the future. And so this is a great time, great milestone to mark 50 years of accomplishments and a bright future ahead. Thank you so much. Mahalo.
Mahalo, 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 Denise. Really appreciate those warm words. At this point, I'm going to hand off the mic to our wonderful outreach director, Dr. Brian Chung. And it's he and our graduate assistant, Skyu Lewis, and really one of our lecturers and our former graduate assistant, Ruben Campos, who have really kind of helped bring this together, and especially Ruben in the end. So thanks especially to Brian and to Skyu really for organizing so much of this, and now Ruben jumping in with helping on the backside.
All right. Hello, everybody. Some of you may know me already, but my name is Brian Chung, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Ethnic Studies. And Skyu? Oh, thank you. Thank you for the applause. You guys are too kind.
And yes, my name is Skyu Lewis. I am the graduate assistant in the Ethnic Studies department here. We're very pleased we have a really packed schedule here, and yeah, I'm really excited. So I just wanted to share, because we are using the Padlet to gather responses. So I want to share the QR code of that. So if you have a phone, you can put it on the camera function and come up to the QR code. Rather than using the Zoom chat, you feel free to use the Zoom chat as well, but this will just allow our viewers who are not able to be here with us currently, who might be watching this after, to also participate in the discussion. So please leave a comment, memories of ethnic studies, a picture of yourself, how you're celebrating 50 years of ethnic studies, and I'll also post the link in the chat after this. And if I can ask Ruben to, thank you, Ruben. This is what the Padlet will look like. So once you get to the Padlet page, you will see the little plus button on the bottom right corner. If you click on that, it will enable you to post a title, which Ruben is currently doing. We love ethnic studies. And below, you can write your comment. You can add a picture or a link, or yeah, be creative. If you have any old pictures you want to share, anything like that, just so we can kind of create our community space while we're here together. And we'll check in with this board throughout our event to bring in some voices from our participants. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Skyu, for introducing the Padlet. So again, just to reiterate what Skyu just mentioned, please feel free to type in some messages, anything you'd like to share with us, anything that's that you're thinking of during this event, and we'd love to hear from you. And so thank you, everybody, for being here this afternoon. There's really so much to celebrate, as Ty has already mentioned, and as other speakers have already mentioned today. And today's program is really honoring our department's legacy, but also celebrating the future work, or the work that our department is currently doing, both on and off campus, our students, our partners in the community, and many other people across campus who we really consider to be part of our community here. And so we really hope you enjoyed today's program. We have a lot of fun stuff today. We have student performances. We also have some really heartfelt videos we'd love to share and to update you on some of the work that our faculty as well as our students are doing. And we have some interludes sprinkled in between. And so, yeah, we can't wait to share this with you. And so with that said, to start us off today, we're going to have the first of our 3 student performances. Dr. Rod Labrada, as well as Dr. Ethan Caldwell, they work really closely with our students in areas of art and music and performance. And they will be introducing these students along the way. So please put your hands together, or please hit the reaction button that has your hands together for Dr. Rod Labrada, and he'll be introducing our first performer today. Thanks, Rod.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? So our first performer for today is Ihilani Lasconia, who is a student in our department. She's an artist, she's an organizer from Waimanalo, Oahu. I was fortunate to have Ihi in my Introduction to Ethnic Studies class during her very first semester on campus. And since then, she's just simply taken off. She recently completed her portfolio project for the honors program. She's a member of the inaugural cohort of our combined bachelor's and master's program with educational administration, which means that she'll graduate with her bachelor's in ethnic studies this semester, and earn her master's degree in the spring of 2022. So that we'll talk a little bit more about that program later on. Last year, she received the Region 6 National Association for Student Personnel Administrators Rising Star Award. Region 6 encompasses Aotearoa, Arizona, Australia, California, China, Guahan, Hawaii, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Singapore. And the award is presented to an undergraduate student for their academic achievement, involvement, and potential in the student affairs profession. And as I mentioned earlier, Ihi is also an artist, which is related to her interests in Indigenous politics and Oiwi poetics and creative expression. And this afternoon, she'll be gracing us with her lyricism. So please, everyone, welcome Ihilani Lasconia.
Wow. Thank you, Professor Rod, for that marvelous introduction. I really appreciate it. Not much of a lyricist, but I do mahalo you for that. And it's been an honor. And I think I'm one of the lucky ones to have been a part of the Department of Ethnic Studies since my freshman year. I think most people join when they're like a sophomore and beyond, but it's truly been wonderful and amazing to grow up in this department. And it's not every day where I have all my legends or all my heroes sitting in front of me. So it's an honor to share some of my work for you folks. This poem was inspired when thinking about the next 50 years of ethnic studies. And it was written in Nako'oko'o, the Native Hawaiian Leadership Program that Kumutai was talking about. And it's titled Na'uma Upuna, or For My Grandchildren. And if it weren't for ethnic studies, I wouldn't, I'm getting emotional, that's so weird. I wouldn't have had the capacity to think and dream of a liberated world, of a deoccupied Hawaii. I'll keep it short, but I was supposed to be in travel industry management. Things happened, things got shuffled around, and I ended up in ethnic studies. So every time I would go to George Hall and make that right instead of making that left, I think like, oh my God, like ethnic studies saved my life, and I don't know where I would be without you folks. So mahalo, this poem is for you. Hope you like it. It's more of like a letter, but yeah. Na'uma Opuna. To my mo'opuna, I am writing to you from a world that does not look like your own. But nevertheless, take comfort in these words because they are yours. They have grown in my bosom so that your makua could be fed with a love so many had to fight to bring back into this world. And even though you may not know me in this life, you'll be nourished by me in our kupuna. Hold these words on the bows of your lips. So when you kiss your mothers, they are reminded of the 40 generations before them and the 40 generations that they will leave this earth for. The life that I imagine for you is one that I will give mine to create. There is no greater desire I have than for you to dream in our language. Though you are young, e kukulu oi kahale no kaumau keiki, o maupope ole o ne ia lako kamea nui o ko mako mo'o o lalo. My wildest dream will never be for you to only go to college or earn a degree. You are much more than that. Although that is the path that I have taken, I hope that in doing so, I have created more ala for you to traverse. Oi aku kamea nui o ka ike puna, ma mua o ka ike mai ka aina e. Remember, you are of me and your mother's, but you are of your own. Stand firm on the kuhua you are given, but not be afraid to add to this foundation. You will see further into the future than anyone who has come before you ever could. E ho'oma kau kau I ho'oi I ko kahua no kaumau keiki. There are no gates for us to meet again. You come from a people who are boundless. There is no place on this earth that my love could not surround you. You live in a world I may never touch, but I will never be out of reach. May my back be a bridge that connects you to the makua who have grown me, grown us. He ano ano oi, he koa oi, he ma makakawa oi, mai makau, kulia valeno no ka mea pili mau me oi. Me ke aloha mai kalani ihi. Ua pau. So, yep. Mahalo piha ia ko. Mahalo to Ethnic Studies and to everyone. Aloha.
Cool. Thank you so much, Iki. That was really beautiful. And please, another round of applause or whatever reaction emojis you'd like to throw up on your screen. That would be wonderful. So we really appreciate that. And thank you so much for sharing. And really what a way to, I think, set the tone for our event today. So next, I would like to, the next part of our program today is going to be introducing and talking a little bit about our combined bachelor and master's program in ethnic studies and education. And this is something that many folks in our department, such as Dr. Rod Labrada, you're going to be hearing from him right now. Something that they've been working on, and it's just been a really amazing partnerships between our two, between our department and education. And I had to ask Rod, I was like, what's the formal kind of way? Because I think we always call it just BAM, and they would always refer to it in the meetings as BAM and just yell BAM out, and it's just really fun to say. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Rod Labrada once again. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, so Brian and Sky, you asked me to just give a little bit of background about our BAM program. So as Brian said, it's the combined bachelor's and master's degree pathways in ethnic studies and education. And what the program is designed to do is offer highly motivated students efficient pathways towards completing a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in a shorter time frame, usually in 5-year time frame. So in terms of years, we were calling it like a 4+1 program early on. And for our community college transfers, it would be a 2+2+1. This program really came about several years ago when I started being the academic advisor, when we had potential majors ask me a couple of things. First, they usually ask, why doesn't the department have a graduate program? And then 2, what can I do with an ethnic studies degree? The answer to the first one, I always tell them, is above my pay grade. But for the second one, I usually answer. And I usually tell them, you can do anything and everything with an ethnic studies degree. Our former students hold public office, as you're hearing here. They work with unions and nonprofits. They work in law, health, education, business. They're filmmakers and other kinds of creatives. But then potential students also asked me about how they could continue going on to doing a graduate program. Then more and more students started asking about careers in education in addition to graduate programs, but careers in education that weren't necessarily in teaching. So could they really kind of affect educational policy or practice, like what and how students are taught in elementary and secondary education? Could they work in higher ed and student affairs and student services? And since we didn't have a graduate program, we look for a different way to provide graduate school opportunities for our students. And that's basically the birth of our BAM program. And several years ago, Monisha and I worked with our partners in educational foundations and educational administration to create these pathways for our students. And to talk a little bit more about the program and their kind of experiences with it, I'm going to turn it over to Kahoku and Robbie, who are part of our inaugural cohort of the program. We just got 2 new students for our next cohort. But for now, I'll turn it over to Kahoku and Robbie, and then after that, we'll have Kahunavai Wright from Educational Administration also giving us a few words about the program. Thanks.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rod. Take over.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Rod, and to the whole department for this time for us to talk about our experiences with BAM and why we chose to be BAMAs, as Kumutai graciously nicknamed us. I'm really excited to be talking to you all because with the ethnic studies to college of ed pathway, there's a lot I found out that I could do and a lot to gain. First of all, I saved money because I entered the grad program as an undergrad. So my tuition was at the undergrad rate instead of the graduate rate. So it was a great way for me to save money. But on a personal note, it made more sense with my career goals because I did want to work in education. I'm probably one of those students Dr. Rao just mentioned talking about an education pathway. because I wanted to make more meaningful change in the system. But as an ethnic studies major, there's a lot of information we're given and different frameworks that we can pull from. And sometimes, at least for me, I didn't really know exactly what to do with all of this. So entering into the College of Ed, yes, it's a lot of research, and research, I admit, was intimidating to me. Kind of still is, but it's because of ethnic studies that I feel I was more equipped to learn more how to do research, especially now that I'm in the College of Ed, learning under the incredible instruction of Conan, who is also here. And basically with this pathway, I learned how to not only apply these different theories and frameworks to research, but to actually do research in something that I actually wanted to study and to learn about. So I do have a background in dance and the performing arts, which isn't exactly the first thing I think of when I think of research. So when I first got to Kohunavai's class last semester, I was able to start merging those two worlds of arts and academics. So my research was on hip hop based education, which I'm actually about to present right after this in her class. But anyway, this pathway became a great way for me to cater my studies to what I wanted to do. And I can probably talk about this forever, but now that I'm looking at the time, I don't want to take too much of it. So thanks again, and I'll just pass the mic off to Kahoku, who I have the honor of calling a fellow Bama.
Hello, Robbie. Thank you. Thank you so much to the Ethnic Studies Department. Thank you, Dr. Rod. Yeah, so why I did it. So I'm a first generation college student, the first one in my family to go to college. I knew I wanted to further my education for a better chance in the workforce, but like in this day and age, a 4-year degree is almost equal to a high school diploma. So I wanted to further my education, but I didn't really know how. So I actually met Dr. Rod and Kahunavai at a transfer day fair at Windward Community College, because it was right when I was about to transfer and I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. So they caught me at the right time. But just like Robbie, I was heavily, like I relied heavily on financial aid to go to school because I'm first generation. So it was definitely the most cost effective way to further my education. But what I found was that I was able to work hands-on or gain a hands-on working experience really in the higher education field with mentors and other classmates, my other BAMAs, that I would have not like had the chance to otherwise if I was not in the 4+1 program. And I know I wanted to be a part of the critical change in higher education and serve Kanaka and other BIPOC communities. And ethnic studies has been a great example of that for the past 50 years. And College of Ed was able to provide that opportunity for partnership. So it's been challenging. I'm not gonna lie, it's super hard. You know, having to finish next month with my undergraduate and then finish the first year of grad school, but I'm so lucky and I really wouldn't change anything about it. And so thank you so much to the Ethnic Studies Department and College of Ed for this partnership. It's been very rewarding and I've learned so much. Mahalo.
Aloha kako. I'm Erin Kahunavai Ka'ala, right? And I'm an associate professor in the College of Ed in Educational Administration. Kavika, I think I'm gonna have to ku'e that title. I don't like, your other students get nako'oko'o and then we get Bamas. Come on. You are a poetic, awesome writer. I want another name. It's an honor to participate in the 50th anniversary of Ethnic Studies. As an alumna of Ethnic Studies and a lab leader for Knoll for freshman seminar back when I was an undergraduate, I couldn't be more proud to be part of the BAM partnership. I'd like to thank Professors Rod Labrada and Monisha Dasgupta for their vision and diligence in bringing this partnership to life. Obviously, as Robbie and Kahoku said so eloquently, not only does our BAM program center our students by providing them a clear, efficient pathway to earn a bachelor's as well as a master's degree, it also ensures that the critical knowledges, perspectives, and skills gained from an ethnic studies education continues to be a significant and relevant part to educational administration. Our current BAM students, Kahoku, Ravi, Ihi, Donovan, represent the best part of our partnership. They are critical, creative, thoughtful, collaborative, and compassionate. They really make me hopeful for our future, even though that might sound a little trite. And I feel like their excellence is really due in no small part to their education and mentorship that they received in ethnic studies. So I just wanted to ho'omai ka iya o ko for ethnic studies and for really showing us what it means to love our Hawaii. Eola.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all the work that you've been doing. We really, really value and appreciate this partnership that we have with Ed. And I think we're really excited for what all the future cohorts will be doing through this partnership. So thank you so much. And next we have Monisha Dasgupta, who's going to share a little bit about Local 5. And that's one of our service learning opportunities for our students, but many of our faculty participate in their organizing efforts, and many of our alumni are also a part of those efforts as well. So at this moment, please put your emoji hands together for Monisha Dasgupta.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so wonderful to see all of you, even if virtually. It's really great to be celebrating this, our 50th anniversary with all of you. And in this segment, we feature select students who have participated with our service learning program that we do in partnership with Unite Here, Local 5. It is a hotel workers, food service worker, and health worker union. And what we love about Local 5 is that it is an organizing labor union, and it cultivates leadership of youth, women, as well as rank and file members. Ula Hassiger and I developed the program with our community partners, Kate Watanabe and Paula Rodelas. And they really wanted to build this bridge between the university and the community in inculcating in our students this this commitment to labor movements. In ethnic studies, we teach our students about the rich history of labor organizing in Hawaii. And what Local 5 does is to show our students that labor organizing is just as important today in terms of communicating the collective voice of workers, not only to improve the conditions in which they work, but also lift the floor for everybody else. And so our students learn that union work is more than collective bargaining with employers. It is a whole range that some of them will testify to in the video that we have made for you. And one of the things is that Paula and Kate, our community partners, they interview each of our students that we refer to them, because our students do this through our classes. And they sit and they hear their stories, and then they match these students up with the particular campaign or the particular activity that would grab their interest and also develop their leadership qualities. And what is even more remarkable, that during the pandemic, when we couldn't send our students out to the sites where students usually do their service learning, Local 5 offered a lot of opportunities for our students to get involved. And these, while our jobs evaporated, Local 5's work, of course, gained a greater urgency, and our students witnessed that. So we bring you a video with, our current students who have been working with Local 5, as well as our alums who've become labor organizers. Thank you.
Hi, it's Maria McClellan. For this ethnic studies major, for the service learning program at UH, I got to go to the local union here, which primarily supports hotel workers. And one of the programs that they do is help them obtain their citizenship, which is an amazing process, a lot of work. And I actually helped some of the hotel workers through the process of the long, tedious journey to become citizens of the United States.
I'm Lisa Grandanetti. I grad from UH in 2017 in Ethnic Studies and Women's Studies, and I'm now an organizer at Unite Here Local 5, organizing airport, food service, and hotel workers to fight the boss. Ethnic Studies was the only place at UH that I could understand myself as a mixed race Uchinanchu woman of color in US occupied Hawaii. And it translated directly into my organizing throughout college of the community and of workers, because it helped me understand the bigger picture of workers' stories and all of the different identities that intersect to keep us down in terms of the systems of power and oppression that we're fighting in our organizing. So without ethnic studies and service learning, I wouldn't have had that lens to understand my organizing. And without the organizing, I wouldn't have been able to put into practice everything I learned. And it gave me a real energy to fight with workers, to build solidarity across different identities and communities, and fight the powers that be.
Hi, my name is Aina. I'm a hotel worker and a labor organizer. I'm also an ethnic studies graduate from UH Manoa, and during my time there, I did service learning with Unite Here Local 5. Growing up, I witnessed my mom work 3 to 4 jobs just to make ends meet, and pretty much to provide me and my sister with food and shelter. And what attracted me to work for the union is that I get to fight the big bosses of capitalism, the system that made sure my mom's wages stayed at minimum wage, the same system that made sure working class families like mine stayed poor, same system that continues to exploit immigrant labor and Native Hawaiian lands. And so when I led my coworkers in fighting the big bosses, like here, we have Hilton, having an ethnic studies background and some training with Local 5 truly helped me push through some of the toughest challenges we went through, me and my coworkers went through when forming a union.
Local 5 helps center immeasurable analytical skills for people's voices through academic and outreach work. Lobbying mayoral forums through service learning highlights the continued reliance on Hawaii's tourism economy. Through centering workers' voices, the union work of Local 5 is a testimony of the masses via community education for the push of Bill 80 brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Bill 80, now Resolution 20-296, seeks frontline workers who uphold our economy the right to recall pandemic-cautious services for the continued subsistence work of Hawaii's community. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for those videos. Those are really awesome. And all right, so next we would like to welcome Ethan Caldwell, who will be introducing our second performer for today. So Ethan Caldwell, I'm going to pass the microphone to you.
All right. Hello, folks, and thank you so much for coming out today. I'm going to be introducing Tea Tuahere Teiti Gerlach, who is a senior ethnic studies major, Maohi poet, and also a contributor to the Deep Pacific podcast, which is a space that amplifies the voices of everyday Pacifica people surrounding issues regarding decolonization, land back, language, and more by weaving together stories as well as experiences. And I'm, excited to hear more from Tea, especially since she's been in almost every class that I teach here, from the African American experience, parts 1 and 2 and more. So the floor is Tea's.
All right, thank you, Dr. E, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for having me here. It is such an honor to be speaking in front of so many people I've admired for so long. I will just dive into it. I remember when I first noticed how my name would stick in people's throats, as though phonetic languages are difficult to pronounce, careless tongues tripping over their own letters. My name, Teotuahiri, fragmented into oblivion, unrecognizable as passive giggles clawed at the back of my neck. I couldn't understand why everyone could say each other's names just fine, but mine. Mine stopped people in their tracks as they decided before even trying that who I am is not worth the effort. I remember learning about the dehumanization of Indigenous people, how our colonizers had to convince themselves that we aren't even human just so they could justify exploiting our land and killing our people. They decided we were disposable a long time ago, but here, where we tell our own stories, write our own histories, and learn about those who have always resisted, we begin to mend the wound of colonization, discovering that we are not and have never been disposable.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you, Ethan, for that, awesome, that introduction. So next, we have a update from Skyu about what's happening on Padlet. So Skyu, what's going on?
Well, we got quite a bit happening on Padlet. It's an active space. It's really nice to see some pictures coming up. I see some representation from Mauna Kea. I see Kumukavika Tengan is holding down the space at Ethnic Studies with his Ava. I can read this one comment here. Mahalo nui. Ethnic Studies Department, you set me on a foundation rooted in social justice, advocacy, education, and a desire to make Hawaii better. To the late Dr. Alagado, thank you for believing in me and pushing me to apply for the Smithsonian Soji Fellow Scholarship. That was a life-changing experience. Mahalo ula for engaging me in service learning. Mahalo nui to you all for everything. Ku'ulani keo hokolole miyashiro, Ethnic Studies 2006. Apologies on the name, I'm a little nervous.
Cool. Thanks, Skyu. Thanks for the update. And again, as we're just kind of throw that out there again, feel free to drop any more comments as we go along. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you again so much for sharing your thoughts and your presence here today. So with that said, we're going to turn it over to Rich Rath, who's been developing our 50th anniversary website. It's been a really great space for kind of a living history of our department. And then there's a lot of really great stuff that our department is archiving and will continue to archive as we move forward. So at this moment, I'm going to just pass it over to Rich. So go for it. I think you're on mute, Rich.
Oh,
okay.
I'm still muted.
Oh, cool.
We can hear you now.
Nope, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay, all right. Hi, everybody. It's good to see so many friends and colleagues here. I'm the new kid on the block. I've been in ethnic studies since fall 2019. I was tasked with setting up the website because that's one of the things that I enjoy doing. And so if I can share screen, I'll get right to that because I want to keep this very brief. So I think you need to let me share screen is all. Okay, and all right. First off, this is the URL for our 50th anniversary website. I'm going to show it on a smaller page, so don't worry that it goes away. It's right here. And you can also take a picture of the QR code if you wish. And I just dropped it in chat, so you can just click on that if you want to get a bookmark for it. This is our 50th anniversary celebration website. When you enter, I'll just give you a very briefest of tours. We've gone with, of course, the department slogan of Our History, Our Way. The first thing I want to point out is that we have dedicated the site to our late colleague, Dean Allegado. So the first thing you'll run into is a page there. We're still working on getting a few more resources and some video up in here, but there's a wonderful show on Ibrahim Audi's Island Connections, honoring Dean's life. Dean was the first person I met in ethnic studies when we came here. And so he's always held a special place in my heart, and I'll miss him. We also go through, I'm just showing these pages to you. They're all linked from that first homepage that I showed you. We talk about our history and run through the first 40 years, and then bring things up to date in our brown paper. On the 50th anniversary, we kind of set out what we see as our future, our way. I had a really interesting discussion as a member of the board of the Center for Oral History, which ethnic studies professor Daviana McGregor leads so well. And we talked about, I had always, as a historian, thought of history as a conversation between the past and the present. In that meeting, I forget who it was, whether it was Davy or someone else, they said, yes, it's a conversation between the past and the present about the future. So that's the Center for Oral History has been doing a great job with presenting to the community on the materials that we have, collecting new materials. So on the Weaving Voices podcasts, for example, talk about the Palama settlement, the bombing of Kaho'olawe, and looking to our past for new political visions. Tai Tengan also has led the North Shore Field School, where they have done sort of a historical oral history geography of the North Shore, talking with elders in and about particular places on the North Shore. So that's a wonderful site, also accessible from the homepage. This is another Center for Oral History project, Hawaii in the life of Hawaii life in the time of COVID-19. So this is ongoing, and I believe you can still participate. It's a series of stories from people living here on their experience of COVID-19. Then I want to point out the testimony in support and appreciation of the Department of Ethnic Studies. In September, there was talk of closing our department and merging it into some other programs. And the community actually came out and spoke on our behalf. Dean Allegado was one of the last things he did. He dictated a really powerful letter in support of ethnic studies. And if you go through here, there's selected quotes from various people. And if you click on the quote, it will slowly but surely load up all the testimony and take you right to the quote of the person that is quoted. So basically, if you want to find all of the testimony, just click on any of the quotes. I think there's a link at the top of the page too. If you click on any of the highlighted testimony, it'll take you right to that testimony. As part of the rapid response to COVID, Professor Dasgupta and I put together a report called Workers at the Table, Recommendations for Best Practices in the Hotel Industry. That's just one of many pieces of scholarship that have come out. If you want to stay up to date on our scholarship, we have the John McElrath online Padlet. So this goes over a lot of the events and the special occasions, publications that we have done during the past year and prior to that. So with that, I'm gonna close, and I'll turn it back over to Brian with that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rich. And everybody, yeah, please visit the website. There's a lot of information on there, about our department's history, but also a lot of events that are coming up or have been that we've had this year. And just a lot of, as I mentioned before, it's kind of like a living history of student work, as well as other really important things happening in our department. So thanks so much, Rich, for, as well as others in the department, for all this work. And thanks.
I'll just add that it's
next
still
up,
in progress, still being built out too. So it's not quite complete yet. So if there's things you want to see, get in touch with me. So
okay.
Thanks, Brian. And I'll.
So that means there's more information to come then. So cool.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Rich. So next up we have Kyle Kajihira and Willa Hassinger, who will be talking about service learning, which is a really important part of our students' major. And I'm going to pass that on over to them now. So thanks, Kyle and Ula.
Thank you. Aloha kako. Just before we get started, I just want to say congratulations to Ethnic Studies for 50 years, and here's to 50 more. I had the honor of being a graduate assistant at Ethnic Studies, and then also now I'm a lecturer. But that's not the first place that I learned about Ethnic Studies. When I was working for the American Friends Service Committee in my community work, Ethnic Studies was one of the only programs from the university that would show up at these community events and really serve the needs of communities. And that goes to the history of the department, born out of people's struggles. It was through the doing that students learned how to make changes in the world. I think that's really important. It's just enough to learn about the world. It's about how do you change it. And so this has always been a core. One of the programs I want to highlight is the Malama Ina Ahupua'a, or MINA program, which is one of the core service learning programs. It grows out of the deep connections that faculty like Marion Kelly and Daviana McGregor have with community groups that are doing Aina work. And by serving and helping those groups, students are learning from people with deep knowledge of the Aina, but also the Aina itself becomes a teacher. And I think that's a really important part. We have a short video with some students giving testimonials about their experiences with the Malama Ina Ahupua'a program. So if you could play that, please. Sky, thank you.
My name is Jessica Cardenas, and I'm here for service learning through Chaminade University with UH Manoa. With Malama Ina Ahupua'a, it's a way to learn in depth more about the land. Although I'm born and raised here in Hawaii and Oahu, being connected to the land it feels good. It feels good giving back to the land and to learn about different places.
What I learned in this class is how to take initiative and take the small steps and tasks that you may think is minute, but it may not make a difference, but it really does make a difference. And if you do take care of the land, it does take care of you. And so that's what I learned.
This whole experience actually impacted all of us. To learn about something in the lab or in the classroom is totally different from actually going out and experiencing it. Because, I mean, you can write papers 1,000 times about something, but until you actually go out and do what you're writing about, it doesn't have as much of an impact on you. So, yeah, definitely learning about the invasive species and how they're impacting the environment and what we can do to kind of prevent it or maybe help was good to learn in class, but going out in the field and actually doing the physical work was I think, a lot more meaningful for everybody.
Aloha, my name is Kovehi, and I'm a senior in the Ethnic Studies department. How can I relate the Malama Ina Ahupua'a to my class? Let's just say that it's really hands-on and I really enjoyed it. What we learned in class, we learned about the native struggles that the islanders and the indigenous people have been going through for many years, and actually being in the community, it really like shows me it's still happening right now and the people are still fighting, and it kind of inspires me to be that leader for the next generation, you know, to kako'o and just malama, you know, malama our people, malama our Aina. And I'm really glad I was a part of it this semester, and I hope to be a part of it next semester as well.
Aloha. So I'm Ula Hazaja. I'm Director of Civic Engagement for the College of Social Sciences now. Something I wouldn't be if I hadn't been with ethnic studies since 1991 and been nurtured by all these wonderful people, or the students, the community leaders. They are all part of creating this legacy of engagement that ethnic studies so proudly lead. I had planned something to say. I'm not used to having just 1 minute. So, however, everybody has so beautifully illustrated the point of what we are doing and the kind of work we're doing. So I want to thank you all for that. Ku'ulani, whose little story was read earlier, was one of my very first student leaders. So thank you so much for being here, Ku. Ku'ulani is married to Jared Ke'ohokalola that also helped out with the MENA program for a couple of years and who is now a senator. So it's good to know that we have leaders that know about the land and the people, that know about how it is to be homeless. All these experiential learnings, experiences that you get from being part of service learning or community engagement in different ways. It's good to know that they have both a theoretical and an experiential understanding of the many things facing survival and relations in our diverse and complex society today. MENA, Oceanic Connections, and other of our programs, policy and social justice. They are all examples of transformative practices and scholarship that ES supports and lead. Community-initiated, transdisciplinary, trans-institutional collaborations across institutions and communities, addressing the big issues of our time through experiential learning, while connecting knowing and practices of indigenous and the so-called academic disciplines. This work has been instrumental in securing grants and institutional support for service learning and community-based research, not just for ES, but for UH and way beyond that. It was for good reasons that the latest accreditation review by WASC recommended that ES should continue to lead the work of civic and community engagement in CSS, College of Social Sciences, and across the university. ES is truly an engaged department. So much energy, so much creativity, so much excellent scholarship. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much, Ula and Kyle, for sharing. And next up is we have one of our interludes for today. We're going to be talking with Jayla Henderson. And Jayla Henderson is an ethnic studies student. And a few weeks ago, Jayla presented her paper, Aloha Aina Abolition in Higher Education at the Ethnic Studies Student Colloquium. Jayla also a few weeks ago presented her research at the National Conference for the Association of Asian American Studies with Dr. Rod Labrada and Dr. Ethan Caldwell and some other folks. And so we're just going to spend our interlude catching up with Jayla and seeing how that experience was. So first and foremost, Jayla, how are you doing?
Brian, how are you?
I'm good. I wish we were doing this in person in a big hall with a bunch of food, but next year, hopefully. But yeah, I was wondering if you could share briefly with us the topic and the topic of your paper.
Yeah, so I presented the work I did as a part of 480 with Dr. Labrador, looking at higher ed programming as a tool to eventually grow healthy and sovereign communities in Hawaii. And because I'm an African American and Kanaka student who grew up with settler colonial prisons in my home, I was super interested in exploring this reality and focusing on the stories of the students at the Waianae College that I work with, specifically the Access to Education program.
Awesome. And I know that the national conference was held, online this year, and so nobody really had a chance to leave their current places of residence to attend. But I was wondering what it was like to share your research with maybe a different audience. You've had an opportunity to share your work, I'm sure, here with many different folks. But I was wondering if you could say a little bit about what it was like to present at the conference, at the national conference, and maybe what were some of the conversations like at your panel, and maybe anything that you took away from your experience.
Yeah, it was my first time presenting at a conference, so I really wouldn't know what I was missing out on in terms of the in-person presentation, but I will say that I really appreciated presenting out of the space that I researched from, and being surrounded in the actual building is really cool. I'll say the most impactful aspect of the conference was presenting amongst other ethnic studies students and really feeling that convergence of our oceanic research in one space, and a space that reflected the data in ways that we understood it to be true as Pacific peoples.
Awesome. And then did you get any questions, or any questions in particular that you had some great conversations about?
We actually didn't have time for questions.
Oh no. Hopefully next time then. So thanks, Jayla. Anything else you'd like to share about the experience before you move on?
Just mahalo to all of the students who presented with me, and Dr. Lab for supporting that research, and congrats, Ethnic Studies. Yay.
Thanks, Jayla. And we look forward to hearing more about your research as it comes along, and where you might take this. So thanks so much for participating in our interlude today. All right. So next up, we're going to hear from the co-MC today, Skyu. So Skyu, you got a Padlet update for us?
Padlet's still happening. Post the link in the chat again for anyone that's still coming in new. I'll just read a quick one because we can keep moving. From Cindy Franklin. You are the best. Congratulations and thank you for being a shining light for this university and for all your contributions to the communities of Hawaii. ES faculty and students show us all how to be present in the world as scholars and activists. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 3 thank yous, heart, Cindy Franklin. And next we have coming up, Tai Tengen talking about some connections with the North Shore Field School. So I'll pass it over to him.
All right, mahalo, Skyu and Brian. Since Rich already gave a preview of the website, thank you for that, Rich. I won't spend too much more time on that, but the URL is North Shore Field School, all one word, .org. And again, you can click on it from our 50th website. And you'll be able to see a lot of the products of the student work. It started off as an archaeological training, methods training field school. Again, my other half is in anthropology, and I was involved as an outreach coordinator. It was sponsored by the Kamehameha schools and done also in partnership with the community. And in 2017, we actually shifted away from archaeology to be more ethnographic and really more focused on oral history. And at that time, it became a collaboration with ethnic studies. And it's been a real joy to take students out to interview the kupuna in Waialua, to hear their stories of the Aina, of the land and the ocean, and just a different time in Hawaii. It's a community under great transition because of the ending of sugar in 1996 and really the dominance of tourism, but you also have a lot of other things going on out there. So getting those stories as part of that record was especially important for the kupuna themselves to pass on to their grandchildren. The COVID situation, unfortunately, completely transformed our field school. So it's online this semester, but still we try to make those connections and show how the work of oral history is something that one can take into their own lives and also contribute to telling the story of the land. So I've invited Lahela Kulukukui, one of our majors, to also come in and just share a little bit about her experience as a member of this current cohort that's been all online, but also someone who had a chance when we got to go out to connect with Aina a little bit this semester. So Lahela, could you just share a little bit about why you joined the field school and really what you've been able to take out of it despite this online world we've been in?
Thank you. Mahalo kumu kavika and aloha kako. My name is Lala. And this semester, I had the wonderful opportunity to be a part of the North Shore Ethnographic and Oral History Field School. It works with the community of Waialua on the North Shore of Oahu. And my interest in taking this class was to learn about the oral history process, but also how it contributed to the historic record. But for myself and my classmates, it has become much, much more, regardless of the pandemic. And we are so grateful for having had this opportunity to be a part of that class. We learned that Waialua is also a very special community with a rich history, and that we as students have an ethical and personal responsibility or kuleana to our narrators, to their stories, to the community, to our kumu and our alakai, and most importantly, to represent our school well. And thanks to our kumu and alakai and the classes mana'o, we were able to learn these values, and we will definitely use them in the future and take it with us when we venture off into the community. So thank you very much for the opportunity to have taken the class and be a student. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui, Lahela. Really appreciate that. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks. All right. I am looking at the program and it says that there is moderator banter, and I think that there was something I was supposed to say here, but I think what I can do is I'll just pass this along. We have lots of things to really celebrate, and one of the things that is such an important and cherished part of our program and our department is the Ko'olawe program that our students have. And so at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Daviana McGregor, and who will say a little bit about it. And yeah, go for it. Thanks, David.
Hi, aloha kako. As we say in Ko'olawe, iola kanaloa, iola kako, which is when Kanaloa, which is the island of Ko'olawe, flourishes, we as a people, as a Lahui, flourish too. And as many of you know, the Department of Ethnic Studies pioneered Aina-based or place-based learning, as well as service learning, working side by side with our communities and giving back to our communities, makahana ka'ike, learning through doing. We have done this through geopolitical tours. I remember we used to always go out to He'eia and out to Kahalu'u and try to we tried to stop H3, but we didn't. And we stood with the people in Waiahole and Waikane against their eviction, as well as helped the Manongs and the Kupuna in Chinatown through People Against Chinatown Eviction, or PACE. My students worked alongside of Ho'okahewai, Ho'ulu Aina, to open up Kapapalo'i o Kanewai. And we also went to the island of Molokai. But we first began to go to Kaho'olawe, and the picture behind here is the Halimua in Hakiwaba, the men's house. And in '85 was the first time I actually made it. And for those students who chose community service as a project, the experience was not only enlightening, but really transformative. And so I have asked two of my former students, well, there are many, but they are also still involved with the Ohana, the Protect Labi Ohana, to share their mana'o with us today and help in our celebration. The first is Anela Evans, who is a Lanai cultural practitioner at the Four Seasons Resort on Lanai. She is also a lecturer in elementary Hawaiian language at UH Maui College. Aloha, Anela from Lanai.
Velina mai kako. I apologize. I have to leave my mask on because I'm sitting at my desk and there's people walking in and out. So I hope you folks can hear me well. First, I'd like to say mahalo nui to Professor McGregor, Auntie Davy, for presenting me the opportunity to speak today. And congratulations to the Ethnic Studies Department for celebrating 50 years of sustaining this, very important and fundamental program at the university. I was asked to speak about how Kaho'olawe has influenced my life. And I first went to Kaho'olawe with ethnic studies in 2005. So as Auntie Davy said, through her Ethnic Studies 221 class, we had a service learning requirement, and Kaho'olawe was presented as one of those opportunities. And I always tell the story of, that spring 2005 when I was, 19 or 20 years old. And at that age, no one has any idea what they want to do with their life. So one of my friends who had taken the class the prior semester, she encouraged me to go to Kaho'olawe. And so I took that opportunity. And when we landed at Honokanai'a, in those days, we were still going over by helicopter. We went into the volunteer huts, and we each, chose our bunk. And in the bunk that I chose, there was a radio sitting on the windowsill. And so I turned on the radio, and as I was tuning it, it was like not a digital dial, old kind style radio. The first song that came in clearly was Hawaiian Soul by Jonathan Osorio, that he wrote for George Helm after his disappearance when he was lost at sea while protesting the bombing of the island. So, people always talk about defining an aha moments, and I think that was an aha moment for me. We talk about, it was like, one of my kupunas slapped me over the head and said, "Hey, wake up, girl." On Lanai, I always was witness to activism because my mom was heavily involved in the community, fighting the development of the resorts and the golf courses and things like that. But it didn't really hit me until Kaho'olawe. And I think that, the lessons that I learned on island, and I continue to learn on island, are what has driven me into the career paths, into the life paths that I've taken today. And so not only has Kaho'olawe been impactful in that way, but I think that the most special thing about Kaho'olawe and the most influential thing in my life is the people that I've met because of Kaho'olawe and the relationships that I've formed. And I feel very, very blessed and fortunate to say that my friends, I think all of us that go to Kaho'olawe often can say this, that I trust my friends with my life, and I have a group of people that I can trust with my life and who understand me and get me on a very deep level. And I think that Kaho'olawe has given me that, and that has been, my foundation, that no matter what, I have these people to support me and back me up. So mahalo nui to Kaho'olawe and to the Ethnic Studies Department for sort of allotting me that opportunity. And mahalo Auntie Davy for allowing me to talk today.
Mahalo nui. Nella did teach our ES 221 Hawaiians class one summer, and Nella will be the newest member of the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission. She just got nominated and approved by the Senate in this past session. Mahalo and aloha. And the second former student is now a kumu himself. And this is Dr. Kaliko Baker, and he is an assistant professor of Hawaiian language at the Kawaihu'elani Center for Hawaiian Language at UH Manoa. And he is also a founding member of Hanakeaka, the Hawaiian Theater Company. Mahalo, Kaliko, for joining us in our celebration.
Ai, welina ke aloha I nā hoa maka maka mai ka lā puka I hae hae ai ko na mole olu I lehua. Aloha. Ho'omika I nui e ke ena ethnic studies. 50 years. It's quite the accomplishment. Ho'omika I oko. To all the polopeka, the professors and kumu and kokua and GAs, TAs, PAs, LAs, I don't know, all the different people that kokua, the success of this papahana and how it reaches our communities. Aloha nui ya oko, aloha nui ho'i kako. I was honored to be asked by Professor McGregor to speak today, give a little glimpse into some events that have proven monumental in the shifts in my life, and subsequently the lives of others who have been able to kokua, bring along on the journey. Well, kokua aku, kokua mai as it goes. Early 1993, I noticed a shift in my Hawaiian language classmates after their trips to Kaho'olawe. Being curious, I asked, well, how do I become a part of this shift? You know, and I looked at what they're doing. I said, oh, all of them taking this ethnic studies course. So I made my schedule. I mean, I've already ticked that box by this point in my course needs. And I was like, oh, what's another 3 credits with the 185 credits I've already earned? Nah, probably not that much anyway. Anyways, so I was like, okay, let's do this. I mean, and you know, of course, having the wonderful Professor McGregor holding the course, and you know, and the list of guest speakers that she would have come through the course, and all heroes. So I enrolled in the course, and my main intention was to go to Kaho'olawe. Of course, to learn the material, but also to go to Kaho'olawe. So we come November 1993, opening Makahiki, a time which opened many portals or kipuka for me. I went from an average student to a good student. Average is probably a pretty high assessment. Anyway, to a graduate student, to a PhD. I also now lead the mo'olono, the priests who carry the makahiki ceremonies on Kanaloa Kaho'olawe. You know, now an assistant professor of Hawaiian at Manoa, like Professor McGregor, I feel the need to share with Manoa, Hilo, and Maui Hawaiian language students that, and our Lahui as well, this sort of shift that my classmates and I experienced back in the 90s. Which I'm sure is similar to those who came before and who will come after. So since 2014, I've been organizing Huaka'i Olelo Hawaii to Kaho'olawe, Hawaiian language accesses to Kaho'olawe. Did a couple early 2000s as well, like 2000, I believe, 2000, 2001. But then revived it in 2014, carried on until the pandemic, I guess. But you know, besides the pedagogical benefits of living through Olelo Hawaii on island and the new songs that we compose while we're on island, because one of the things we kind of just go and not do nothing, so we get Hawaiian language, we compose mele, so that's what we do. So this huaka'i brings up and coming Hawaiian scholars and leaders together who would have not otherwise done so. So Kaho'olawe has that power, that mana, innately in it to uplift us, similar in ways, I'm sure, to how the ethnic studies program has endeavored to give voice to underrepresented communities. Kaho'olawe gives voice to our people and how we aloha aina today, defining yet how we will aloha aina tomorrow. Aloha nui kako, ho'omika I nui a'oko.
Mahalo nui. And turning it back to Brian.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. you were just saying something about thinking about ethnic studies in the 90s and that sort of consciousness through higher education. And I remember I was sharing that story with somebody recently about, my sort of introduction to ethnic studies in the late 90s when I was a college student. And I talked about it like it was just yesterday. And then somebody was like, that was like 20 years ago. I was like, wait, what? But anyways, I think that we all probably have one of those moments where we can remember how we came into contact with ethnic studies and how it's been with us ever since. So, oh, Ruben told me it's not 30 years, it's 20 years. Okay, sorry. Anyways, with that said, I would like to reintroduce Dr. Rod Labrada. We're kind of nearing towards the end of our 50th anniversary, but please stay with us if you can. We have just a few more wonderful things that we'd love to share and celebrate. But first, again, Dr. Rod Labrada, who will be introducing our student performance, our final one for today.
So it's my honor to introduce our next performer, Punahele, in his own words. Punahele is a, quote, ghetto country moke Hawaiian from Makaha, Oahu, who stands against anything that is harmful to the Aina. He is a hip hop practitioner that uses music to create a soundtrack to Hawaiian struggles and frontlines. I first met him about 10 years ago when he was working at the shipyard and was an aspiring rapper. And since then, he became Hawaii's first ever Iron MC champion and has released several musical projects, including the album entitled From Beneath Mount Ka'ala, which won the Nahoku Hanohano Award for Hip Hop Album of the Year. And then just yesterday, he got a scholarship from Rock the School Bells, which is a Northern California-based hip hop education organization. In the fall semester, he will become part of the second cohort for our combined bachelor's and master's program in ethnic studies and educational administration. He is a proud ethnic studies major and a beef stew connoisseur that enjoys long walks on the beach. So everyone, please welcome Punahele.
Aloha mai kako.
Aloha.
Originally wrote this song about celebrating my community. And as a kid from the hood who is now working to become an academic, I guess this song that I chose to celebrate my community can be used to celebrate my department. So congratulations to the Ethnic Studies Department, and maybe guarantee another 50 to 500 years to come, to infinity and beyond. But here it goes. I won't take up any more time. Aloha Aina. Yee. Take a look around, use your eyes, this ain't Hawaii Ka. Around here, it's do or die, like in Bed-Stuy. West side, 695, Maka, Hawaiian, where you either surf or scrap hard just to make it out. And we grew up having nothing, I come from the roots. And all the ghetto people love me cause I speak the truth. And rich people love me cause I never ask for help. And fake people hate me just because they hate themselves. Hella overtime, we trying to make fat stacks. A flamethrower in the flesh, spitting crack raps. Hardly stolen from my grandma, but I'm past that. We ain't tripping, we'll just grind to get the land back. For the ups and the downs, it's a celebration. And since they couldn't keep us down, it's a celebration. And since this pain made us strong, it's a celebration. And since the struggle made us strong, it's a celebration. La ho'i ho'i e a, it's a celebration. And la ku'oko a, it's a celebration. 50 years of ethnic studies, it's a celebration. Our history, our way, it's a celebration. Shout out to Goku because Goku was our only hero. Because they killed George Hellman, they killed Kimo Mitchell. The cops locked up Michael Kuna for speaking Hawaiian. And teachers beat up Michael Kuna for speaking Hawaiian. They tried to kill our culture by killing our language. Ika olelo no ke ola, ika olelo no kamake. Put the dope down, put the bottle down, go to college, work hard, make sure your ohana strong, help your brothers out, make your mother proud, buy your moms a house. I'll make the cakey strong, singing songs to burn down Babylon, torches lighting torches until everyone is shining, making heaven into Kono until the last aloha Aina. For the ups and the downs, it's a celebration. And since they couldn't keep us down, it's a celebration. And since this pain made us strong, it's a celebration. And since the struggle made us strong, it's a celebration. Professor Rod is in the house, it's a celebration. Ruben Campbell's in the house, it's a celebration. Ethnic studies in the house, it's a celebration. Our history, our way, it's a celebration. Mahalo nui. Thank you guys so much.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. I was like whooping in the with the mute on, and then my partner was like, "Did you call for me?" I was like, "No, no." Thank you so much. All right, so we're gonna bring back Dr. Daviana McGregor, who has a lot in store for us. She's going to be sharing a little. She's going to be sharing with us her work as the director of the Center for Oral History, as well as Maika Mizukami, who is also the associate director, who will be joining Daviana to share a little bit about the Center for Oral History.
Thank you. We want to start off with our a little infomercial we made. Maika made it with the help of our Professor Patricia Buskirk when we took her class.
Hello, my name is Maika Mizukami, and I'm the Associate Director at the Center for Oral History in the Department of Ethnic Studies.
Can we start?
Congratulations on celebrating 50 years.
Kalamai, can we have the other one first,
Hello,
please?
my name is Maika Mizukami.
Excuse me. Can we have the other one first, please?
Backdrop for an unforgettable vacation.
The Center for Oral History in the Department of Ethnic Studies at UH Manoa collects, documents, preserves, and highlights the recollections of Native Hawaiians and the multi-ethnic peoples of Hawaii. Through projects, training, and partnerships, the Center produces oral histories and interpretive historical materials about lifeways, key historical events, social movements, and Hawaii's role in the globalizing world for the widest possible use. The stories help us appreciate the diversity of peoples in the islands, how much creative intelligence there is, and how people have utilized that creative intelligence to improve the way of life for people here in the islands. There's so much that we can learn and apply in our lives to continue to develop and keep Hawaii the special place that we all love. We've collected 800 oral histories. We have about 30,000 pages and transcripts of these stories. But we think that if we could make the voices of the people available and you can hear the stories as they were told, that would be a much better way to access and to become interested and have these stories live on and have the voices of our kupuna live on.
Mahalo. And now we could have Maika Mizukami speaking of our project in this year.
Hello, my name is Maika Mizukami, and I'm the Associate Director at the Center for Oral History in the Department of Ethnic Studies. Congratulations on celebrating 50 years. I would like to quickly highlight two of our accomplishments this past year before handing things off to our director, Dr. Daviana McGregor.
Welcome to Experience.
The COVID-19
Hawaii
pandemic
Life
pushed back the
Histories,
launch of
a
our Weaving
podcast
Voices
series.
public program and podcast series. However, our theme of communities in transition turned out to be incredibly relevant as we brought together voices from our archive with voices from today, from around the state and even from the continent, to consider future direction. You can find program recordings and our podcasts on our YouTube channel. The pandemic also got us comfortable conducting interviews over Zoom, especially for our Hawaii Life in the time of COVID-19 oral history project. Through an OEV undergraduate research fellowship through Native Hawaiian Student Services, we have been working with Jasmine Lewis, an undergraduate research assistant, to document the experiences of Hawaii's people throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Our project is ongoing, so if you would like to contribute to our project in any way, please check out our website for more information.
Mahalo. And maybe, Micah, if you're still on, you could put our links into the chat. And so another project that we have just started this spring is interviewing the UH emeritus faculty. And I sent a note to Amy to say we want to include her in this project. But we are beginning with our ethnic studies faculty who retired in May and August of 2020 and will retire in May 2021. We're also doing 2 emeritus faculty in political science. So I'd like to now introduce our undergraduate researcher, Jasmine Lewis, who conducted these interviews. And she is an undergraduate researcher through sponsorship of the Native Hawaiian Student Services. And we aloha them for allowing her to work with us and learn together with us. Aloha, Jasmine. And she's actually Native Hawaiian, African American, and living in Michigan, but she's been helping us throughout this whole year. I haven't met her in person yet, but she had taken the North Shore Field School also with Professor Tai Tengan. Aloha, Jasmine.
Aloha, mahalo. Thank you so much, Davi. As you said, I had the honor to interview Noel Ken Ibrahim Eude and Jonathan Okamura from the department last year to celebrate the 50th year anniversary of ethnic studies. And really these interviews allowed our professors to kind of reflect on their time in ethnic studies and kind of share what they have contributed to ethnic studies department. So mahalo nui to Noel, Ibrahim, and John for taking the time, and here are their excerpts.
I was on and off and stayed with the program. I was on and off and stayed with the program for, first the program, then the department for 40 years. Yeah, 40 years. Yeah. So basically I spent 48 years, if that's believable. I don't believe it myself, with ethnic studies. I saw it evolve over the years. I saw ethnic studies as a way of dealing with some of the really fundamental conflicts in society and helping people to achieve a level of understanding and I won't say tolerance, but just understanding and curiosity about other cultures and other ways of living that might be, might lessen and undermine the kind of raw stuff that I saw growing up. So that was so I thought ethnic studies was wonderful in terms of that. And the only reason we survived in '72 was because we had people like Buddy Akov from Windward Side, and we brought in all these really tough local people who basically I wouldn't say they intimidated the administration, but they were tough. And they let them know that basically this is our program and these people are expressing our ideas and they care about our culture and our way of life, and we're backing them all the way. I think we've been very fortunate. We've had excellent leadership. Our chairs have been very, very good, especially the last 15 years, say 10, 15 years. I think we've remain true to that whole notion of our history, our way, and presenting a certain sense of what's gone down in Hawaii and other places in terms of race relations and racism and white supremacy and lots of other things. And it's been very powerful. We've been a voice for a long time. I think we were a voice crying in the wilderness, and people tolerated us for various reasons, including the fact we had community support. We're a rare voice in the islands and in the university, and we need to do everything we can to support the mission as we see it. So.
And what really attracted you to ethnic studies?
Well, one reason is my interest in issues of race and ethnicity. You know, as I said, my dissertation research was on Filipino immigrants in Kalihi. And besides that, though, the focus on problems and issues, I think ethnic studies, not just here, but as it got started in the continent in the late 60s, has always been concerned with those issues as they especially affect racial and ethnic minorities. And as opposed to, say, let's say, departments which focus more on theoretical issues and less concerned about, especially the local community where the university is found. And ethnic studies had this long history of involvement in serving the local people of Hawaii, and I wanted to be part of that also. We live in a very unequal society in Hawaii because there is this myth of Hawaii as the racial melting pot where everyone gets along with each other. We don't have the kinds of problems that people encounter on the US continent. But I'm trying to challenge that kind of very popular understanding. I'm sure most people in Hawaii believe that people in Hawaii get along very well with each other. We don't have those kinds of problems, serious problems dealing with race and racism that are much more prevalent on the continent. And so I tried in my work, the publications I've done, and also the speaking opportunities I've had in the community, or opportunities to be interviewed by the media to address these concerns and try to make people more aware of how racism persists in Hawaii and how different groups are being disadvantaged very unfairly, like Micronesians or Filipinos or Samoans. People tend not to focus on those kinds of problems that continue from decades before, or except, well, in the case of Micronesians more recently. So that has been the concern I've had with the publications I've done and the classes I've taught, bringing out those issues.
Yeah.
The issue that I'm concerned about, I would say the most right now, and it's a continuation of my previous interest on ethnic inequality, is educational inequality. I work with a small group of people called the Hawaii Scholars for Education and Social Justice. So what we try to publicize are the problems plaguing our public school system, K-12 and the university level, but especially K-12. K-12 level faces huge underfunding, which a lot of people are unwilling to acknowledge.
Well, I mean, because it was active, and you know, the politics, the most radical department on campus still is, and so yeah, because I've been in terms of activism from back home, you know, with the Palestinian youth and Lebanese trade union movement, and you know, all of those kinds of politics, progressive activist politics. So it was natural for me to move into like anti-war movement issues and evictions, anti-evictions, and all of that. So the department was natural. And that's why in the first place, I met with Noel Kent, who was active in both the anti-war movement and anti-eviction struggles, and for support of ethnic studies. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
We are open to the community, especially the community that was fighting evictions and all of that, and indigenous issues, etc. So it is at that time, especially, like it was practically the only department on campus that had a comprehensive program teaching about race, ethnic relations in Hawaii, in the Pacific, indigeneity, etc. The mission was, you know, according to our motto, our history, our way, is to produce history and you know, about political development and all of that. You know, that's really happened in Hawaii, and not like what Haole oligarchs have, you know, written up, or they want you to study those kinds of things that have nothing to do really with Hawaii. I mean, you know, I mean, it's their perspective on Hawaii.
Yeah.
So you can still study those, and it's important to study those to know how it is that those oligarchs thought, you know, and where do their interests lay, as opposed to the interests of the overwhelming majority of the people, especially indigenous and minorities, you know, indigenous people and minorities in Hawaii. You know, so our history, our way, that was the thing.
So mahalo nui loa. And I wanted to just say we do have the visual. It's just that over Zoom it doesn't synchronize, and so it's kind of jarring to see. So we only played the audio and showed a photo. And we do plan to organize a big celebration in person for our retiring faculty and our emeritus faculty in springs, a year from now, I hope. So spring 22 will have to regroup, regather, and continue the celebration, especially honoring our emeritus faculty who we honor and are so grateful for all their contributions over the year and over the years that they have helped to build the department. Mahalo and aloha.
All right, thank you so much, Davey. And I always tell, every time I see Micah, I always tell him that the Center for Oral History has the best flyers, or one of the best flyers on campus. And I collect them because I just think they're really cool looking. So, but anyways, thank you so much for that. And we're nearing the end of our program today. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And thank you, everybody in the department, for contributing and sharing these wonderful stories. And big shout out to Ruben Campos behind the scenes with the technology. And again, shout out to Skyu for being the co-MC today and dealing with my bad jokes as we were planning this event. So I just want to say this is my sort of send off, but thank you for allowing me to be your MC and for allowing me to be on your computer for the last 2 hours. Sky, would you like to say a few things?
Sure. As we kind of close our event this evening, I would just like to start directing our attention to futures. We have a Mentimeter, and I'll post the link in the chat. But if you're someone who likes to use QR codes with your phone, you can use that right now. And just want to say thank you for everyone for participating and being here today with us. It's been amazing. And I'll post the Mentimeter link in the chat, and it will take you to, maybe I can show you very briefly in case you have not used Mentimeter before. It will take you to this website, and you can just type in up to 10 responses and hit submit. And the intention is to have all of our minds kind of working together, and it will make a word collage. So we'll get feedback from everyone simultaneously. So if you can check out the Mentimeter, and I'll pass it to Ty for some closing remarks.
All right. Mahalo again, Brian, Skyu, Ruben, really everyone who contributed to today. And thank you for those who could stick around till the end here. I know it's maybe a little bit longer than we planned, but you know, there's so much to try to cover about the last 50 years. We only really scratched the surface. And we do look forward to having a more in-person gathering, so I can share with you this AVA that I made that I think only a couple people around the office have been able to come in and partake of. You know, in line with the Mentimeter prompt that the Skyu gave us in closing remarks, I opened with this chant that was about the launching of a va'a, right? And so it's really, where is this va'a going? What are the skills that we need to navigate this canoe in these oceanic futures? And for many of us, that answer has always been in our past, in our history, looking at whether it's indigenous or local or other knowledges that have brought us to this point. Last November, there was a roundtable that was held that Daviana had moderated, that was talking about oceanic solidarities, and thinking about it in the context of some of the debates around Asian settler colonialism, and what it means to think about how we're working together to move towards these new futures, noting that the different places on this va'a that we're sitting on, but still, how do we come together as one to move forward? One of the ideas, the keyword that I would put up in this Mentimeter, which I will later, is the hoa va'a. So the hoa, the term hoa is a friend, a companion, but it can also mean to tie, to bind, to rig. And in the case of the va'a, the canoe, that term means both the canoe rigging as well as the canoe companion. And in the chat that I offered, the writing was from David Malo. He actually talks about one of the final ceremonies of the launching of a double hull canoe is the ahahoa va'a, both the ceremony of this binding of the va'a that holds everything together, but also the actual cordage. And this is something I think that offers us ways of looking forward. You know, how do we, as those who come together, which is another meaning of the term aha, how do we as aha, when we aha, bind each other in our travels forward? That's the hoa. And how do we become those relations and bind those relations? And for me, it's I think the way I want to think about oceanic solidarities and how we're holding each other together, accountable and supported as we move forward. So my term will be hoa va'a when I put it up on there. And I want to thank all of you hoa, all of you friends who have gathered here, our hoa from the last 50 years, our new hoa who will be joining us. I know there is at least a number of new admitted students who got this invite, and I saw their names on here too. So I want to welcome you into ethnic studies, and really all of our longstanding community supporters. It's been a great ride, and especially as a last final aloha to our emeritus professors and soon to be emeritus, John, Noel, Brahim, for the example that you've given, that we will carry on. So mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. Thank you all for coming and joining. And with that, I'll bid you all ahui ho. And Skyu will, I think, have you left the link in the Mentimeter? There we go. Mentimeter away as your final image. And thank you all again for joining us. Ahui ho.